Hi, I'm Ali Reza, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a RAG agent using N8N. Before diving into the implementation, I would like to explain the RAG concept very quickly for people who still don't know about the RAG concept and what it is. So, yeah, let's jump right into the concept. So, as you know, when we are using any LLM, large language model, like ChatGPT, like Llama, and many other large language models, how it works is we give an input prompt as a query to the LLM, and then LLM can generate the answer for us. So this is quite a basic flow of how LLM works in any chatbots. But when we look at the problems is that these LLMs, they do not have access to many of the source data and information. For example, they don't access to your internal policies in your company. They don't have access to your personal data. They don't have access to your company data. So because of that, if you ask any of questions that related to any of these data sources, you're not going to get answer from LLM. And because of that, RAG actually is the solution, because with RAG we are able to utilize LLM and connect our source data to the large language model in a way that the large language model can generate answer from those data. But before we start asking questions from the RAG agent, there are things needs to be done in order to make sure that the whole setup is ready. So we need to prepare the data, and because of that, we need to learn about the embedding and vectorization. You might hear the name of embedding and vectorization, but don't worry about it, because all of these things is going to be covered by the tools we are using. But it's important also to understand that when you want to use the LLM, you still need to do a couple of things beforehand before connecting your data source to your RAG workflow. So we need to vectorize our data, and in order to create a vector database, you need to do the embedding. And in order to do the embedding, you need to extract the text from your document, split it to the chunks, and those chunks data is going to be vectorized and stored in the vector database. This way, we can create the same the data format as we have on the large language model in a way that is very easy also to be retrieved by the RAG agent. And then after that, what we can do is to use the LLM to generate the answer for us. In a nutshell, this is the simple way of looking at the RAG solution. I already created more videos about the RAG, which you can watch and understand more in details about what the RAG is and what are the steps you need to take for that. But let's go to the next concept, which is the RAG agent. When you create a RAG agent, basically you connect your vector database to your LLM. And in order to do that, you need to have a retrieval system. With the retrieval system, when you get any question from input, you embed your question, and then you query the same question you have from your vector database to see if there is any relevant answers for that. And once you get the relevant answers, your context is ready. Your context is including your question and also the relevant answer, right? So you have a question, you have some relevant information, and then you pass it to the LLM, and then LLM will generate your final answer. So basically here, we utilize the LLM capability to generate the best answer out of the input information we have. And we don't want to use the LLM data here, because when we add any information to LLM as a RAG solution, we want to limit the agent to the information is provided by us, not from the LLM. And why is that? For example, when you process the company policy and you ask questions about your company policy from LLM, you expect to see those information only limited to the policy you have, not from outside of your company, right? Otherwise, LLM can give you any fictional answer or any other random answer it might have from many other companies as a common answer, but that's not what we are looking with the RAG. With the RAG, we are looking for the right answer, a specific answer to the input information we have. For this video, we're gonna use several tools. For the workflow automation, we are going to use the N8N, which is quite nice and easy to work. Everything will be step by step. For the documentation, the tool that we use to process the document, we are using the Google Drive. So I already uploaded my file to the Google Drive and I'm gonna process it from there. For the vectorization, I'm gonna use Pinecone. You can sign up with Pinecone with a free subscription and I still use this service without any subscription, so that will be free. And of course, for the Google Drive, you also need to enable your Google Drive API. This is also important because if you don't, then the Google API is not working. And last thing is the document. The document I'm using for this tutorial is the fictional company policy. So we already have a company policy which is quite different from the other company policies. Because of that, then we can test the agent. So the idea is that when we create this agent, the agent only answer the question based on this company policy. And if the question is not supported by this information, the agent should say, I don't know any answer. So then I think then we have done a really good job with this agent. So let's start creating a new workflow here. I will start naming it RAG agent here. So before I jump into the automations here, maybe I forgot something to show you. It's about the way we need to create this basically automation. Yes, this is it. This is what I wanted to show. So basically what we want to do first is to vectorize our data. I already showed you the document we have. We need to vectorize this data and store it in our storage here, the vector database here, which is a Pinecone. And the process for that is that we need to provide the source data, we need to do the embedding, and then store it to the vector database. So there we need to think of two actually kind of a flow here. One flow for vectorizing the data, another flow for creating the RAG agent. So this flow is the flow that we don't need to run it every time. So we run it every time we want to update our database with the new data. So I just put the manual trigger here. The next thing I need to do is the Google Drive. So I click on the Google Drive and I choose the download file because we want to get the file here. Now from here, you need as always, you need to configure your credential first on each component when you are creating the workflow in N8N or any other tools. So I already configured this and it's very easy to do. You need to follow the documentation to create your credentials here and then connect it here. I think you can follow that guideline and then everything will be straightforward. From here everything is fine. The only thing we need to choose is the file here. So this is the name of the file I want to process, and I can actually test the step here already, and as you can see it is working. Next thing we need to do, we need to add vector store. As I said, we are going to use the Pinecone here, and we have a Pinecone store connection here. So basically from the actions we can choose the add documents to vector store, and from here what we need to do, we need to connect to the Pinecone API account. You can get the API account once you sign up for the Pinecone. We can generate the API key from there. So and that will be configured here. It's already tested successfully, so I don't need to do it. The operation mode should be insert document because we are adding document. The index here should be configured to the index you created. When you create the Pinecone for the first time, you can actually choose the index. Currently, I created the index and called it test. So you can call it any name you want. So I can choose test here. For the embedding batch size, I think I can leave it to 200. That should be fine. And the only thing I need to do here is to also add the Pinecone namespace. So for that, I'm gonna add company info. And I'm gonna close this because still I need to do other things here. So the next thing is to connect the embedding model and also the data loader here. So for the embedding model, I'm going to use OpenAI. And I can leave the same embedding model here. The only thing is the dimension should be 1024. And here we need to also connect the data loader. The data loader here is by default JSON, but our data is a PDF binary, so we can change it to the binary. The rest is fine. And now we have the text splitter. And for the text splitter, we can use the token splitter here. That should be fine. And the chunk size, we can also keep it to 200 here. That should be fine. I think everything looks fine here. What we can do, we can test it here. So if I test workflow, it's working successfully. Now if I go back to the Pinecone, sorry. And here I can go to the namespace. And I can see that the company info namespace is already filled up with information. So this is the namespace I need to use also in the next step when we create a RAG agent. So I think this is for the vectorization. And what we can do, we can create a kind of a sticky note here for the vectorization, just to make it a little bit clean. Okay, now we want to create a chatbot in this section. In order to do that, we need to add the chat trigger here. And let me see where it is here. I can put it here. Nice. Next, I need to add the agent here. So I'm just looking for the agent, AI agent. And here, I think I need to add the system message. The prompt user message is already configured with the chat input. But for the system message, I already prepared the prompt. So I will add my prompt here and then should be fine. There's nothing else I need to configure here. The prompt is super important here because the prompt actually will tell agent what to do, what kind of actions it needs to take, and also what kind of tools you need to use. Everything will be done by the prompt, but don't worry about it because you can download the template after watching this video, so you don't have to be worried about that. So for the chat model, what we can do, we can connect to the OpenAI again. I would like to change it to the GPT-4o. And that's it. I think this is also fine. We can add the chat memory also, just to make sure that the chat memory also is provided with the RAG agent. You can also configure the context window lengths, how many past interactions. I think 5 should be enough here. So, and for the tools, we need to connect it to our vector store that we created previously. So we look for the Pinecone again here. And now we need to configure this Pinecone. The Pinecone connection is already configured because we did it once. Now we need to change the name here. I think for the chain name, I will put it company knowledge. company knowledge vector store. I will remove this number 1 here. And here also company knowledge. And for the description, I'm just use this tool whenever you need to retrieve company information. And for the index, I'm going to choose test. And then for the namespace, I'm going to choose company info, the one we already configured previously when we did the embedding. So I think here also everything is fine. Everything is configured properly. Now what we need to do, we need to configure the embedding model here. So we do the same embedding model that we use for the vectorization, and the dimension here also. Yes, I think then this is also nice. And you can also tidy up your selection for this workflow. It's already nice, but if you click the tidy, it's also make it really nice and neat. So now our AI agent is ready, so we can give it a try. For the testing, it actually generates some questions from ChatGPT, so I can actually use those questions to ask a question. So I'm going to do that. So in order to do that, you can already start asking questions from the agent. So as you, we can go again to the document, just have a quick look what kind of topics we had. It's about the ticketing system, SLAs, notifications, resolving tickets, feedback, rating, support. Common actually topics that you expect from the ticketing system for IT support. So for example, the first thing is we can ask, it's about URL. Okay, what is the... Yes. Let me just, yes. What's the website URL for accessing the ticketing system? It's interesting. It's correct. If you go back to the document, you can see that the URL is here. So as you can see the process that the agent actually took to come up to this answer. So as you can see, all of the components are listed here, and also it shows us what happened. So we have the input, user question, and the prompt, and then after that it did retrieve the information from the knowledge vector store, and then after that, based on the prompt we had, we got the output information. This is quite interesting to see what happened. Also the memory is also working here. So now I can ask another question, for example, about the SLA. What is the SLA for the high priority issues? So before asking questions, we can also look at the SLA here. So the SLA for the high priority should be 4 hours. Let's ask these questions and see what will be the answer. This is quite interesting. It gives us a really good and concrete answer. So let's ask a question which is not part of this document. For example, something completely different, which is not part of the document we provided. So the expectation is this RAG agent should not give an answer to this question because it's not provided in the document, and it shouldn't also give us any other answer out of the document. Let's see. So this is quite interesting. It says I couldn't find any information about this question in the company policy document. So this is really nice. That's what exactly I was actually looking. Let's ask another question which is part of the document. So the question I'm gonna ask is about the help desk. Yeah, the IT help desk phone number. And let's see what will be the reaction from the agent. So as you can see, it gives us the right answer here. And now I'm going to ask another question which is not part of the document. It's about what programming language is used to develop the ticketing system backend. Let's have a look. It's interesting. This was not provided inside the document. And of course, the agent also didn't give us any answer for that. So we managed to create a RAG agent processing our custom documents. So you can put any documents you want and convert it to the vector database. And after that, you can actually create your AI agent, the RAG agent, using that vector database. I'm going to put this template on the community, our community. You can join to our community and download the template. The link is below in the description. And I hope you like this video. See you in the next video. Thank you.